With this censure move politically, the Republicans gave Adam Schiff a gift. Because you heard those ridiculous quotes from the members of the Democratic Party, which are now a part of the congressional record, calling this pathological liar a hero. Democrat after Democrat lining up to sing similar praises, basically turning June 21st into one long campaign ad for Adam Schiff for Senate. An unpaid ad that Schiff himself is grateful for. This is Adam Schiff on the House floor on June 21st.
To my Republican colleagues who introduced this resolution, I thank you. You honor me with your enmity. You flatter me with this falsehood. You who are the authors of a big lie about the last election must condemn the truth tellers, and I stand proudly before you. Your words tell me that I have been effective in the defense of our democracy, and I am grateful.
Adam Schiff is branding himself as one of the truth tellers.
I am so damn tired of being lied to. I don't think I can deny it anymore. You can stick to your story if you think it flies, but I'm not gonna buy it anymore.
Hello, my friend, and thank you for listening to the 200 and something episode of Congressional Dish. I am your host, Jennifer Briney, and I don't know what number this is going to be because I haven't quite decided when to release this. But that doesn't really matter. What really matters is that Congressional Dish is a podcast about what happens in Congress after the elections. This is about what the people we hire to represent us do with our money and on our time. And sometimes they do stuff that lives in the record books forever, and we have to examine it. And this episode is an example of that. Because on June 21st, the House of Representatives censured Representative Adam Schiff of California. And quoting now from the House of Representatives website, a censure is a, quote, registration of the House's deep disapproval of member misconduct that nevertheless does not meet the threshold for expulsion, unquote. So basically, if you can't throw someone out over something, you can censure them. It's like the next best thing. Now, as for the consequences of censure, there really aren't any, except your name goes on a list of people who have been censured. And it's not a very long list, actually. The House has censured just 24 members of Congress before Adam Schiff, making Adam Schiff the 25th. And this isn't something that happens all that frequently. In fact, there have only been 2 censures before Adam Schiff in the last 40 years. So the most recent ones in 2010, Representative Charlie Rangel of New York, who is a Democrat, was censured for failing to pay income taxes, failing to report hundreds of thousands of dollars of assets, and using his congressional office supplies, so like his congressional stationery, to ask for campaign contributions from business executives. And then in 2021, Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona, a Republican, was censured after he posted a cartoon onto social media that portrayed himself hurting President Joe Biden and killing Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Pretty mature. But the fact that he was censured for that is a little infuriating to me because Paul Gosar was one of the members of Congress who tried to help Donald Trump in his coup attempt in early 2021, along with Representative Andy Biggs, Representative Scott Perry, and others. But no one has censured any of them for that, and they're still serving in Congress. But that's a rant that is sure to come on another day alongside Trump's next indictment, because in my opinion, assisting in that coup attempt is a more serious offense than a weird social media cartoon. But that's what's kind of fascinating about the history of the censure in the House of Representatives, which is that the seriousness of the 25 offenses varies wildly. So some of the offenses for which members of the House of Representatives have been censured are serious. So in 1983, there were 2 representatives who were censured for having sex with 17-year-olds who were working in Congress. In 1979, Representative Charles Diggs was convicted on 11 counts of mail fraud and 18 counts of false statements in a payroll fraud scandal. In 1870, 3 members of Congress were censured for selling military academy appointments. In 1866, a member of the House was censured for assaulting another representative with a cane. And in 1856, Lawrence Keat was censured for threatening senators with a pistol and a cane in order to prevent those senators from intervening, while another representative beat the shit out of then Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts. He was getting beat with a cane. So much caning in our history. Who knew? But this took place after Senator Sumner had talked shit on two other senators in a Senate floor speech that included the accusation that one of the senators had taken a mistress who was, quote, though ugly to others, is always lovely to him, unquote. Now that would have been some must-see C-SPAN. If, of course, it wasn't 1856, and which is a time that doesn't have TV and, of course, doesn't have C-SPAN. But what I did find weird about that story, aside from the caning and the talking of the shit and all of the drama, but what's really weird about it is the representative who actually bashed in Sumner's head with a cane did not get censured by the House of Representatives. So I don't really know what made them make that decision. So the guy that prevented the senators from intervening, he gets censured. But the guy who's actually doing the beating, no punishment for him. Our Congress has apparently always been insane. But along with those list of offenses, which, those are clearly serious, there's also some that are surprising to see on the list because they're not serious, in my opinion, at all. So in 1921, Representative Thomas Blanton was censured when he inserted a letter into the congressional record that contained indecent language such as "goddamn" and "you son of a bitch." Which, we don't even bleep that on this show. Also in 1868, Representative Fernando Wood was censured for calling Reconstruction legislation a monstrosity. In 1832, 1867, 1875, and 1890, members of the House were censured for insulting another member during a speech or debate. And in 1869, Edward Holbrook was censured for accusing another member of lying, which is fascinating to me because the censure of Adam Schiff accuses him of lying. And so basically, the Republicans, in accusing another member of lying, are doing something that in our history, a member of Congress was censured for. So that's the history of the censure. And so the seriousness of the offenses has no consistency at all. And so as we go through this, just keep that in mind as you judge for yourself how serious this punishment is and if it was appropriate for what Adam Schiff is accused of doing. But here's the target of this censure's interpretation of the seriousness of it. Here's Representative Adam Schiff himself on the floor of the House on the day that he was censured, June 21st.
Donald Trump is under indictment for actions that jeopardize our national security, and McCarthy would spend the nation's time on petty political payback, thinking he can censure or fine Trump's opposition into submission. But I will not yield, not 1 inch. The cost to the Speaker's delinquency is high, but the cost to Congress of this frivolous and yet dangerous resolution may be even higher, as it represents another serious abuse of power.
And you're going to have to decide for yourself over the course of this episode what you believe this censure to be. Is this a dangerous resolution? Is this a serious abuse of power? Is it a waste of time? Is it a deserved punishment? Well, today we're going to take a look at what exactly the Republicans in the censure documents accuse Adam Schiff of doing. We'll examine if he, in fact, did what they say, and we'll see if censure, as in having his name forever etched on this list of the dirty 25, is an appropriate punishment for his actions. But before we get into the censure documents, there is some backstory that you may or may not know already, and so I'll make this quick. But it's important to understand the truth of some events of the Trump years in order to judge what is truth, what is deception, and what is a straight up lie. So in 2019, Robert Mueller, who is the former FBI director, he completed a 2-year investigation into the allegations that then President Donald Trump and members of his campaign had worked with members of the Russian government to conduct opposition research on the Hillary Clinton campaign, which allegedly included collusion in the stealing and releasing of Democratic Party emails. The investigation into the Trump campaign's alleged collusion with Russian officials began in 2016 under the nickname Crossfire Hurricane. The Mueller report which I read cover to cover and detailed for you in episode 196. Well, the Mueller report said that Donald Trump and members of his campaign did not work with the Russian government officials to influence the outcome of the 2016 election by stealing or releasing Democratic Party emails. The report also said, quite clearly, that Donald Trump took multiple, probably illegal steps to obstruct the Mueller investigation, none of which Donald Trump has been prosecuted for. But the important point today is that neither Donald Trump nor anyone in his campaign colluded with Russian officials to do anything to swing the 2016 election in Trump's favor. And Trump likes to play the victim all the time. But in this case, he actually was. Because for 2 years, he was publicly accused of and officially investigated for essentially being an agent of a foreign country, and none of it was true. And so after the Mueller report was released, then Attorney General Bill Barr ordered an investigation into Crossfire Hurricane. So basically, he ordered an investigation into the origins of the other investigation to see how an investigation into what turned out to be bullshit was even launched. Attorney General Barr appointed John Durham, who's a former district attorney for the District of Connecticut, as special counsel to investigate if any government officials did anything illegal when targeting Donald Trump and his campaign. Special counsel John Durham conducted 480 interviews and reviewed over 1 million documents after serving 190 subpoenas and executing 7 search warrants. And in May, just 2 months ago, the so-called Durham report, which investigated the Trump-Russia investigation, was released. The Durham report concluded that the investigation was opened after the FBI received, quote, unevaluated intelligence information from Australia, unquote, that, quote, the matter was opened as a full investigation without ever having spoken to the persons who provided the information, unquote, and that, quote, neither U.S. law enforcement nor the intelligence community appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion in their holdings at the commencement of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, unquote. Further, the report said that the FBI opened the investigation without, quote, any significant review of its own intelligence database, collection and examination of any relevant intelligence from other U.S. intelligence agencies, interviews of witnesses essential to understand the raw information it had received, or using any of the standard analytical tools typically employed by the FBI in evaluating raw intelligence. Had it done so, the FBI would have learned that their own experienced Russia analysts had no information about Trump being involved with Russian leadership officials, nor were others in sensitive positions at the CIA, the NSA, and the Department of State aware of such evidence concerning the subject, unquote. So basically, the investigation into the Trump campaign's alleged collusion with Russia was based on unsubstantiated bullshit. And so from here on forward, we shall declare this inconvenient truth for those who despise Donald Trump to nevertheless be the truth. The investigation into Donald Trump and his campaign's collusion with Russia never should have happened, and there was never any actual evidence. Knowing that is the truth in hindsight, we now turn to the actions of Representative Adam Schiff during that investigation and the parallel investigation that was conducted into the same bullshit by the committee that he served on as the top-ranking Democrat and then the chairman. That committee was the House Intelligence Committee. During the investigations that were launched based on the bullshit, Representative Adam Schiff, a Democrat representing literally Hollywood, California, well, he was one of the members of Congress who was most vocal in his support of the investigation, both in Congress and in the media. And that is what is at the center of the censure of Adam Schiff. Now, as we go through this episode, I am going to tell you what I think about all this, but you are not required to agree with me. And if you want to see all of the documents that I'm mentioning throughout this episode for yourself, I have the primary sources. So the documents themselves, not just analysis of them, but I have those documents for you in the show notes. And I encourage you to read them for yourself to make up your own mind, especially if you don't know or trust me, because trust is earned. And the show notes are how I earn it. I bring my receipts. And doing so, to be honest with you, is a pain in the ass, and it costs me money to do it. And so if you appreciate having those receipts and these episodes, please pay for them by using whatever method works for you on the support page on congressionaldish.com. Our Patreon is per episode. You can also pay with PayPal or Zelle or paper checks in lump sums or monthly, weekly, whatever you want, whatever interval works for you. But those regular payments really do help us budget. But we also accept Venmos and Cash Apps and And like I said, we take paper checks to our mailbox. My sister deposits those, so they are in safe hands. And I am coming back to the States soon. I'm speaking to you from Mexico City. But when I get home, you know I'm itching to use those Chipotle gift cards. But whatever amount or method works for you, works for us. And thank you from the entire Congressional Dish team to everyone who has helped us keep this project going for all these years. And because of you, I think you can trust that I am loyal to no one other than you. There is no political party paying me behind the scenes, and there are no campaign contributions being funneled to me in return for my episodes. You better believe that I've been offered money to do hit pieces on members of Congress. Lots of money, actually. And I've turned it all down. And that is because this podcast is funded by you, and therefore it is made for you. And in this podcast, because of this funding model, I have the freedom to tell you what is happening as I and only I see it. And without your participation in this funding model, that kind of trust just wouldn't be possible. And so thank you to all of our producers on behalf of all of us who produce and listen to this show for making this level of trust possible. Because at the heart of all of this is trust. And at the heart of the censure is trust in Adam Schiff. And so let's look at what he's accused of doing. So to start us off, this is the woman who led the censure effort, Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, speaking on the House floor on the day the censure passed, June 21st.
With access to sensitive information unavailable to most members of Congress and certainly not accessible to the American people, Schiff abused his privileges claiming to know the truth, while leaving Americans in the dark about this web of lies. Lies so severe that they altered the course of the country forever. The lie that President Donald Trump colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 presidential election, revealed to be completely false by numerous investigations, including the Durham report. The lie that the Steele dossier, a folder of falsified and since completely debunked collusions, accusations funded by the Democrat Party, had any shred of credibility. Yet Schiff read it into congressional record as fact. Lies concocted and compiled in a false memo that was used to lie to the FISA court to precipitate domestic spying on U.S. citizen Carter Page, violating American civil liberties.
So let's take a few moments here and break down what the hell she's talking about. And we'll do that by looking at the actual charges from the censured document. So one of the charges is that on March 20th, 2017, Representative Adam Schiff read false accusations from the Steele dossier into the congressional record. Now, the Steele dossier, which is a phrase that I've come to truly hate hearing, but that dossier is a package of documents written by a man named Christopher Steele. From 2010 until November 2016, so through the 2016 election, Christopher Steele, who used to be an intelligence spook in the British government, was providing information to the FBI. His relationship with the FBI began during the early Obama years because he was giving the FBI information about, among other things, Russian oligarchs and corruption in international soccer competitions. But in 2016, during the Trump-Hillary election year, members of the Democratic Party who were politically on Team Hillary hired a company called Fusion GPS to do opposition research on Donald Trump. Fusion GPS hired Christopher Steele to do the actual work of gossip collection. Christopher Steele then collected gossip that included rumors that Trump was having sexy escapades with women with low standards and full bladders in Russia, and Christopher Steele collected rumors that people within the Russian government were giving information to the Trump campaign about Hillary Clinton. Basically, the Steele rumors accused Trump of getting opposition research from the Russians. And because they considered the rumors that Trump was getting opposition research from the Russians to have significant national security implications, Christopher Steele and his boss at Fusion GPS decided to give his rumor lists to the FBI. And so in July of 2016, 6 years into his role as an FBI informant, Christopher Steele met with his handler and gave him a report with his gossip about Donald Trump. The FBI handler, according to the Durham report, considered Christopher Steele to be biased against the Russians and the Trump campaign, and the FBI handler said that he assumed that Steele's tasks were politically motivated, which they obviously were, considering the company he was working for was literally hired to help the Clinton campaign. And the Durham report confirms the FBI handler's suspicions to be true, because it concluded that the FBI, quote, did not and could not corroborate any of the substantive allegations contained in the Steele reporting. nor was Steele able to produce corroboration for any of the reported allegations, even after being offered $1 million or more by the FBI for such corroboration, unquote. And so basically, we now know that the rumors included in Christopher Steele's collection of memos in his dossier were bullshit. And Adam Schiff read that bullshit from Christopher Steele's memos into the congressional record. But Adam Schiff didn't write those documents, and it wasn't known at the time where the information in those documents came from. And furthermore, the Steele dossier documents and all of the bullshit contained within them are now key documents in U.S. history. Documents that led to 2 investigations and were the subject of many congressional hearings. And so they probably should be in the congressional record. And so I'm giving Adam Schiff a full pass on this one. The next accusation in the censure against Adam Schiff is that it says that Schiff released a memo, quote, justifying the accuracy of the FISA warrant application on Trump associate Carter Page, of which was later found by Inspector General Horowitz to have 17 major mistakes and omissions, unquote. Now, I could get into Carter Page and his role in all of this, but I don't want to. Because all you really need to know is that a secret FISA warrant was granted using Christopher Steele's bullshit documents as justification. And the secret FISA warrant allowed the FBI to spy on a member of the Trump campaign named Carter Page. And just to note, there have been many of us, myself included, who have been screaming about how fucked up the process for these secret FISA warrants has been since the permissions for getting them were expanded during the W. Bush years. And on another side note, we just found out last week that a FISA warrant was granted that allowed the FBI to spy on a U.S. senator. Now, we don't know which senator, which I kind of love because they don't know which senator either, so they all might be thinking, ooh, is it me? But the expansion of permissions that was granted by Congress during the W. Bush years, it's expiring at the end of this year. And so I'm hoping that that suspicion of the senators thinking, could it be me? I'm hoping that that will scare and or piss off enough members of Congress so that they will finally allow the W. Bush year's secret warrant permissions to expire. And by the way, if you have thoughts on secret warrants that have been proven to have been granted based on bullshit, now would be an excellent time to share those thoughts with your members of Congress and remind them that the warrants are also proven now to be targeting them. But anyway, one of those fucking FISA warrants was used to spy on Carter Page, a member of the Trump campaign, and Representative Adam Schiff wrote a memo about it, which was also peppered with bullshit. Now, his memo is in the show notes for you if you care to play Spot the Bullshit for yourself. And I gotta tell you, it's a pretty easy game because I found some on page 1. But here's Adam Schiff on the House floor defending himself on the day that he was censured.
It would reprimand me over a flawed FISA application as if I were its author or I was the director of the FBI, and over flaws only discovered years later and by the Inspector General, not Mr. Durham. In short, it would accuse me of omnipotence, the leader of some vast deep state conspiracy, and of course, it is nonsense.
And he has a point. This is another case where, again, the truth about the Steele documents, which were used to get the FISA warrant, the bullshittery of it all was discovered later, as even the Republicans themselves acknowledge in the censure document. And so despite Adam Schiff's carelessness in regards to the truth, in regards to what could and could not be known at the time his memo was written, I do have to give him a pass on this one too. The next allegation against Adam Schiff is that he publicly and falsely denied that his staff communicated with a whistleblower to launch the first impeachment of President Trump. The whistleblower in this case was a member of the CIA who reported that Donald Trump was trying to get Ukraine's President Zelensky to dig up dirt for him about the Biden family's actions in Ukraine. And here's Adam Schiff's denial, for which he's being censured for, which aired on Morning Joe on MSNBC on September 17th, 2019.
We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower. We would like to, but I'm sure the whistleblower has concerns that he has not been advised, as the law requires, by the Inspector General or the Director of National Intelligence, just as to how he is to communicate with Congress. And so the risk for the whistleblower is retaliation. Will the whistleblower be protected under the statute if the offices that are supposed to come to his assistance and provide the mechanism are unwilling to do so. But yes, we would love to talk directly with the whistleblower.
But the following month, an article in the New York Times reported that a member of Schiff's staff did, in fact, meet with the CIA whistleblower. And so he did it. Adam Schiff said his staff hadn't met the CIA whistleblower, but a staffer did. And yet another example of the truth not being all that important to Adam Schiff. But I'm struggling just to find any reason to care, especially to the point that a punishment is necessary. But this next one, as a habitual hearing watcher, I care about this one a little bit more, mainly because I remember feeling like it kind of tricked me. So the next allegation against Adam Schiff is that he, quote, during a hearing on September 26, 2019, Representative Schiff misled the public by reading a false retelling of a phone call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, unquote. Now, this was a hearing about the saga that led to the first impeachment of President Trump, which impeachment is a pretty big deal. And I produced an episode about that impeachment during which I concluded that despite my dislike for Donald Trump as a person, and now after his coup attempt, my passionate belief that Donald Trump is unfit to serve as president of the United States ever again. Despite all of that, I concluded after immersing myself in every hearing and every document that President Trump was not guilty of what they were accusing him of in that weird Ukraine-centered impeachment attempt. Now, that episode is in the show notes for you, and so I'm not going to get into all the details again. But please don't come at me if you haven't taken the time to listen to it and at least hear where I'm coming from in that conclusion. Because what I'm about to play for you is just one example of what was a problem in that whole impeachment inquiry, which is that what we were told did not match what the document said. And I remember as a part of that research, I watched the hearing that Adam Schiff just got censured for. And I remember listening to Schiff's opening statement and then reading the transcript and feeling deceived by Adam Schiff, even though he didn't technically lie. And so let me take a few minutes and show you exactly what I mean. So this is how Adam Schiff started summarizing the phone call that President Trump had with Ukraine's President Zelensky in the beginning of that hearing.
President Zelensky, eager to establish himself at home as a friend of the president of the most powerful nation on earth, had at least two objectives: get a meeting with the president and get more military help. And so what happened on that call? Zelensky begins by ingratiating himself, and he tries to enlist the support of the president. He expresses his interest in meeting with the president and says his country wants to acquire more weapons from us to defend itself.
And so Adam Schiff started off with an accurate representation of what President Zelensky said on the phone call. But then he switches to a representation of President Trump.
And what is the president's response? Well, it reads like a classic organized crime shakedown. Shorn of its rambling character and in not so many words, this is the essence of what the president communicates. We've been very good to your country, very good. No other country has done as much as we have. But you know what? I don't see much reciprocity here. I hear what you want. I have a favor I want from you, though. And I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it, on this and on that.
Which is very different from what the phone call transcript said. Now, first of all, Trump didn't repeat anything 7 times. But more importantly, Trump didn't request that Zelensky, quote, make up dirt on my political opponent, unquote. While President Trump did mention Joe Biden's effort when he was vice president to get a Ukrainian prosecutor fired, and Trump did ask Zelensky to look into that, that was an allegation that Trump was pulling straight from the big mouth of Joe Biden himself.
I was, not but it just happened to be, that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
And so in asking President Zelensky of Ukraine to look into the prosecutor thing, Donald Trump wasn't asking for anything to be made up, as Adam Schiff claimed. Also, the favor that President Trump asked for was for President Zelensky to look into the cybersecurity company CrowdStrike. The specific request, the specific favor, had nothing to do with the Biden family. And then Schiff continued with his summary of what President Trump said on the phone call.
You know what I'm asking, and so I'm only going to say this a few more times, in a few more ways. And by the way, don't call me again. I'll call you when you've done what I asked. This is, in sum and character, what the president was trying to communicate with the president of Ukraine. It would be funny if it wasn't such a graphic betrayal of the president's oath of office. But as it does represent a real betrayal, there's nothing the president says here that is in America's interest, after all.
But President Trump didn't tell President Zelensky not to call him again until he did what Trump asked. The vibe of that call wasn't nearly as threatening as Adam Schiff portrayed it to be. And Adam Schiff was called out for that deception in the hearing itself. Here's Representative Mike Turner of Ohio. He's a Republican, and this is about an hour into the hearing.
While the chairman was speaking, I actually had someone text me, is he just making this up? And yes, he was. Because sometimes fiction is better than the actual words or the text. But luckily, the American public are smart, and they have the transcript. They've read the conversation. They know when someone's just making it up.
And I'm personally glad that we had that transcript. Because if I didn't read it for myself and just watched this hearing and trusted Adam Schiff's summary, I would have kept my wrong impression of what that now critical document in U.S. history actually said. I personally feel like that was deceptive then, and I still see it that way now. But here's Adam Schiff's defense of his behavior after he was called out by Representative Turner during that hearing.
My summary of the president's call was meant to be at least part in parody. The fact that that's not clear is a separate problem in and of itself. Of course, the president never said, if you don't understand me, I'm going to say it 7 more times. My point is, that's the message that the Ukraine president was receiving in not so many words.
And here's Adam Schiff's defense of his behavior when asked about it later that day by Wolf Blitzer on CNN.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, you're being severely criticized by a lot of Republicans for mocking the president during your opening remarks today at the committee. Was it a mistake to make light of the situation?
Oh, I don't think it's making light of the situation, and I certainly wouldn't want to suggest that there's anything comical about this. But I do think it's all too accurate that this president, in his conversations with the president of Ukraine, was speaking like an organized crime boss. And the fact that these words are so suggestive that the president used of what we have seen of organized crime harkens back to me of what, for example, James Comey said when he was asked by the president if he could let this matter involving Flynn go, when Michael Cohen testified about how the president speaks in a certain code where you understand exactly what's required. Here, the point is that the president was using exactly that kind of language, and the president of Ukraine fully understood what he was talking about.
Well, do you regret what you call the parody, the use of those phrases during the course of your opening statement?
No, I think everyone understood, and my GOP colleagues may feign otherwise, that when I suggested that it was as if the president said, listen carefully because I'm only going to tell you 7 more times that I was mocking the president's conduct. But make no mistake about this. What the president did is of the utmost gravity. And and the utmost seriousness because it involves such a fundamental betrayal of his oath.
And to be accurate, because I do care about accuracy, unlike Adam Schiff did couch his portrayal of the phone call in his opening statement, as good lawyers do, by saying that his portrayal of the call was, quote, the essence, unquote, of what President Trump said. But like I said, knowing how careful, responsible investigators are in investigative hearings, this felt deceptive to me. A person concerned with the truth would have just read the transcript to start the hearing so that the hearing would be focused on discussing the actual facts and the actual words spoken in the phone call. But Adam Schiff chose to do otherwise. The representative of Hollywood decided to do some acting instead of presenting the facts he had sitting right in front of him. But the question is that choice worthy of punishment? After all, we did all have the transcript. Representative Turner was able to check it and call him out in the hearing, and I was able to check the transcript and spot the deception in almost real time. And so while it was certainly deceptive, it was easily fact-checked. And so the question for us voters needs to be, what level of deception by members of Congress is worthy of official punishment, is worthy of our Congress taking time away from doing important work to dole out that official punishment. Because all of these charges against Adam Schiff are based on deception in one way or another. And in this case, he did couch his deceptive portrayal of President Trump's phone call by saying it was the essence of the phone call. He didn't actually claim to be reading it word for word. And so while I really don't like what he did in that hearing, should he be officially punished for lying when he didn't technically lie? I lean towards no. But that brings me to the final charge of deception in the censure document, and this one is the hardest to dismiss on technicalities. Because the final allegation is that Adam Schiff abused his position as a ranking member and then chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence to deceive other members of Congress and the public. Because in his position as the number 2 and then number 1 guy on the Intelligence Committee during the 4 Trump years, Adam Schiff had access to information that was not available to the public or to many other members of Congress. Being on the Intelligence Committee, that puts you in a unique position of authority. And in that position, Adam Schiff wasn't always allowed to bring his receipts. And so more trust than usual had to be put towards his words. And here is what the censure documents and the Republicans accuse him of doing in that position on the Intelligence Committee. This is Representative Mary Miller, a Republican of Illinois.
Representative Schiff used his position as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee to mislead the American people by falsely claiming that there was classified evidence of Russia colluding with President Trump, which was not true.
And so, did he do that? Well, see if this counts as that to you. Here's Chuck Todd on March 19th, 2017 on Meet the Press, speaking to Representative Adam Schiff.
Collusion is sort of what hasn't been proven here between whatever the Russians did and the Trump campaign. In fact, the former acting director of the CIA, who was Mike Morrell, who was a supporter of Hillary Clinton, he essentially reminded people, took Director Clapper at his word on this show, who said there has been no evidence that has been found of collusion. Are we at the point of, at what point do you start to wonder if there is a fire to all this smoke?
Well, first of all, I was surprised to see Director Clapper say that, because I don't think you can make that claim categorically as he did. I would characterize it this way at the outset of the investigation. There is circumstantial evidence of collusion. There is direct evidence, I think, of deception.
And here is a follow-up conversation on MSNBC between Chuck Todd and Adam Schiff. This occurred just 3 days later.
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial.
And here is Jedediah Bila. I don't watch The View, so I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce her name. But here is one of the hosts of The View the very next day on March 23rd, 2017, interviewing Adam Schiff.
Congressman, you made yesterday what some are deeming a provocative statement by saying that there is more than circumstantial evidence now that the Trump camp colluded with Russia. Senator John McCain was critical of that. Others have been critical of that. Can you defend that statement?
Yes, and I don't view it as the same bombshell that apparently they did. Look, I've said that I thought there was circumstantial evidence of collusion or coordination and that there was direct evidence of deception. And no one had an issue with that, and I don't think anyone really contested that. On the basis of the information we keep getting, I can say, in my opinion, it's now not purely circumstantial. We had the FBI director testify in open session about this, acknowledge an FBI investigation. Obviously, this is now public, and I think it's fair to say that that FBI investigation is justified, that wouldn't be done on the basis of not credible allegations, and so I think it's appropriate to talk in general terms about the evidence. But I don't think it's appropriate for us to go into specifics and say this is what we know, from this piece of classified information, or this is what we know from this witness. But I do think in this investigation where the public is hungry for information, it is important that we try to keep the public in the loop. That's why we're having public hearings.
And now we're going to fast forward 9 months later. This is December 10th, 2017, and here's Adam Schiff on CNN.
But we do know this. The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning, whether it is proof beyond a reasonable doubt of conspiracy or not.
And now let's flash forward again another 9 months. This is August 5th, 2018, and here's Adam Schiff speaking to Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation.
Can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
And now we flash forward to when the Mueller report was released, which said in hundreds of pages of detail that President Trump did not collude with Russian officials to do anything. But here is Adam Schiff on This Week with George Stephanopoulos. This was on March 24th, 2019.
You have said, though, in the past there was significant evidence of collusion. How do you square that with Robert Mueller's decision not to indict anyone?
And there is significant evidence of collusion, and we've set that out time and time again, from the secret meetings in Trump Tower to the conversations between Flynn, the Russian ambassador, to the providing of polling data to someone linked to Russian intelligence, and Stone's conversation with WikiLeaks and the GRU through
none of it prosecuted.
No, that's true. And as I pointed out on your show many times, there's a difference between compelling evidence of collusion and whether the special counsel concludes that he can prove beyond a reasonable doubt the criminal charge of conspiracy. We need to be able to see any evidence that this president or people around him may be compromised by a foreign power. And we, of course, seen all kinds of disturbing indications that this president has a relationship with Putin that is very difficult to justify or explain. It's our responsibility to tell the American people these are the facts. This is what your president has done. This is what his key campaign and appointees have done. These are the issues that we need to take action on. This is potential compromise. There is evidence, for example, quite in the public realm, that the president sought to make money from the Russians, sought the Kremlin's help to make money during the presidential campaign while denying business ties with the Russians.
And now we're going to fast forward to 2023, to June 21st, the day that Adam Schiff was censured, and a month after the Durham report was released, proving that the investigation into Trump and Russia was launched based on bullshit, the collection of which was paid for by the Clinton campaign. And the Republicans are accusing Schiff of, here's Republican Representative Nick Langworthy of New York.
Schiff repeatedly used the authority he was afforded in his position as chairman to lie to the American people to support his political agenda. Even after the Durham report discredited the Russia hoax, he continued to knowingly lie and peddle this false narrative.
Which I see as a credible allegation, because here is Adam Schiff on the House floor 7 minutes earlier.
It would hold that when you give internal campaign polling data and you're polling data to a Russian intelligence operative, while Russian intelligence is helping your campaign, as Trump's campaign chairman did, that you must not call that collusion, though that is its proper name. as the country well knows.
Adam Schiff is sticking with this collusion story, regardless of all evidence to the contrary that has been presented in 2 investigations that were conducted by credible people and which cost us tens of millions of dollars, and who even knows how many man-hours to conclude. I mean, Adam Schiff can't even be honest about the documents that censure him.
This resolution attacks me for initiating an investigation into Trump campaign solicitation and acceptance of Russian help in the 2016 election, even though the investigation was first led not by me, but by a Republican chairman.
But the censure documents don't censure him for launching an investigation. It's not on the list. Adam Schiff also said that the censure...
It would fine me for the costs of the critically important Mueller investigation into Trump's misconduct, even though the special counsel was appointed by Trump's own attorney general.
But he knew damn well that the fine was removed from the censure document when he said that. And this is because the censure that passed on June 21, which is the day he said that on the House floor, the censure that passed on June 21st was actually the second attempt by the Republicans to censure Adam Schiff, because the first one failed. Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who is a backbencher but apparently is as nuts as a Marjorie Taylor Greene, well, she first tried to get Adam Schiff thrown out of Congress by filing a motion to expel him in May. And that went nowhere. And so then she tried to censure him. But her first version included a $16 million fine, which is half of the $32 million price tag of the Mueller investigation. And fining a member of Congress $16 million, which is many times more than his net worth, was too far for every single Democrat and even some Republicans. Here's Representative Tom McClintock, a Republican of California.
Mr. Speaker, I opposed the original version of this resolution, not to defend Mr. Schiff's lies, but to defend the process that exposed those lies. We must never punish speech in this House, only acts. The only way to separate truth from falsehoods or wisdom from folly is free and open debate. And we must never impose excessive fines that would effectively replace the constitutional two-thirds vote for expulsion with a simple majority. But this new version removes the fine, and it focuses instead on specific acts, most particularly the abuse of his position as intelligence chairman by implying he had access to classified information that did not exist, and his placement into the congressional record of the Steele dossier that he knew or should have known was false.
And so the first version of the censure with the $16 million fine, before June 21st, it had already failed in a vote of 225 to 196 when 20 Republicans joined all the Democrats to kill it. But Adam Schiff said that he was being fined on June 21st, the day of the vote on the second version of the censure, the version that did not have the $16 million fine in it. You know, this guy, whether you think a censure is warranted or not, he just doesn't tell the truth. And the Democratic Party, if their leaders are to be believed, have absolutely no problem with that. Here's Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the new leader of the Democrats in the House, speaking on the House floor on the day of the Adam Schiff censure.
Adam Schiff has done nothing wrong. Adam Schiff is a good man. Adam Schiff has served this country with distinction. Adam Schiff served this country well as a federal prosecutor, fighting to keep communities safe. Adam Schiff served this country well as the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, investigating people without fear or favor, including those at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, because he believes in the Constitution and his oath of office. Adam Schiff served this country well as the lead impeachment manager during the first impeachment trial of the former president of the United States, prosecuting his corrupt abuse of power. And yes, Adam Schiff served this country well. In the aftermath of the violent insurrection, pushed back against the big lie told by the puppet master in chief, and participated as a prominent member in the January 6th committee to defend our democracy. Adam Schiff has done nothing wrong.
So leadership clearly has no problem with his behavior. And also the corporate wing of the Democratic Party has no problem with his behavior. Here's good friend of the bankers, Representative Jim Himes of Connecticut.
The most important thing I can say is I sat next to Adam Schiff for years. He is a man of integrity and dignity.
And in case you're wondering, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party doesn't seem to have a problem with his behavior either. Here's Representative Raha Krishnamurthy of Illinois.
Today, we're voting on a joke of a measure to censure Adam Schiff, a true public servant and patriot. I urge a strong no against this resolution targeting a true American hero.
A hero. And the Democrats, they backed up their words with their votes.
On this vote, the ayes are 213 and the nays are 209. With 6 answering present, the resolution adopted. Without objection, the motion to consider is laid on the table. House will be in order. I'll wait.
I'm sure you'll be shocked to learn that it was a large group of Democrats who were standing and yelling, "Shame, shame, shame," when the vote was announced. And that same large group of Democrats, just a few moments later, then went and gave Adam Schiff a standing ovation.
Will Representative Schiff present himself in the well?
The censure passed by a party line vote of 213 to 209, with all Democrats voting no and 6 Republicans voting present. And 5 of those 6 Republicans who voted present and therefore didn't vote are members of the Ethics Committee, which is notable because usually a censure vote happens after an investigation by the Ethics Committee finds wrongdoing. But the Republicans are punishing first and investigating second because there was no Ethics Committee investigation before this censure. Instead, the already passed censure refers Adam Schiff to the Ethics Committee for an investigation, which is totally backwards. And it reminds me actually of what Adam Schiff did in the second impeachment of Donald Trump. They impeached first and then investigated second, which doomed the impeachment to fail because all of the really damning information about Donald Trump's coup attempt, the plan that was written down by John Eastman for what they were trying to do, all the fake electors, the fake documents submitted to the National Archives, all of which Donald Trump almost certainly is about to be indicted for. We didn't know about any of that when Adam Schiff and the other impeachment managers in the Democratic Party decided to impeach Donald Trump just for the January 6th riot. Punish first, investigate second is backwards. And both parties are doing it. And when it comes to the impeachments of our criminal ex-president Donald Trump, Adam Schiff was a leader of both of them. And Democrats in Congress, this is their analysis of Adam Schiff's job performance. Here's Representative Mike Quigley, a Democrat of Illinois.
But what really gnaws on the majority, what really bothers them, is that Mr. Schiff was way better than anybody on their team at debate, at leadership, at messaging, at legal knowledge. He kicked their ass. He was better, he was more effective, and that still bothers them.
And I, for the life of me, can't fathom thinking that. Because Donald Trump is a criminal, and not a very good one at that. And yet Adam Schiff and friends botched both impeachments that would have prevented Donald Trump from being president again. Now, the first impeachment, the one about the Ukraine phone call, the Democrats credit Adam Schiff as a key architect of that one. Here's Representative Andre Carson of Indiana.
What I do know, Mr. Speaker, is that Adam Schiff defended the U.S. Constitution. He led an impartial investigation, which followed the facts, which led to the first of 2 impeachments of a former president.
And that impeachment failed. And it wasn't because of partisanship, but it was because they didn't make their case. I think I've been quite clear, especially on We're Not Wrong, so why hide it here? But I think I've been quite clear that I despise Donald Trump. But even I would have had to have voted to acquit him in the first impeachment. Just like Adam Schiff did with his interpretation of that phone call in the opening of that hearing, during the impeachment, they twisted that phone call into something that they just couldn't prove. And they rushed the impeachment, only having an investigation in one committee, in Schiff's committee, when the inquiry was referred to 6. And key witnesses were never even interviewed. Again, listen to my episode about the first impeachment if you don't know what I'm talking about, because I've already explained this all in excruciating detail. But it is a fact that they rushed it and they did so unnecessarily, and the impeachment failed. And Adam Schiff was central to the entire effort. And instead of choosing new people for the second impeachment, the impeachment that really did need to happen, Adam Schiff was again trusted to be a manager of that impeachment despite his terrible job performance the first time. And again, the choice was made to rush the impeachment. All they had at the time was footage of the riot and Donald Trump speaking before it. And they blamed Donald Trump for that riot, but he didn't actually tell the crowd to riot. There was enough cover in his words, because Trump did say to march peacefully when he told the MAGA morons to march to the Capitol. He told them to do it peacefully. And so he was acquitted for that one too. And with what Adam Schiff and friends presented at the time, I again would have voted to acquit. But had Adam Schiff decided to wait until the January 6th committee had been able to complete its work, that impeachment would have gone very differently. Because most of the witnesses to the January 6th committee with the most damning testimony were respected members of the Republican Party, who were disgusted by Donald Trump's attempts to pressure election officials to change the vote counts just enough so that he would win their states. States, plural. He did that to officials in multiple states. These respected members of the Republican Party were disgusted by Donald Trump's attempts to replace the Attorney General with an inexperienced hack who promised to tell the world that election fraud existed where it in fact did not. And these respected Republican Party officials were disgusted by the creation of fake documents by the Trump team in 7 states that told the National Archives that Trump had won those states when he actually had not. That was a coup attempt. The riot was a sideshow. And because of Adam Schiff and his partners, but Adam Schiff was a key decision maker who chose to rush the impeachment and focus it entirely on the riot. And now Donald Trump remains eligible to be president of the United States again. Adam Schiff is bad at his job. And Adam Schiff is running to replace Senator Dianne Feinstein as one of California's 2 senators. He's asking the voters of California for a promotion. And with this censure move politically, the Republicans gave Adam Schiff a gift. Because you heard those ridiculous quotes from the members of the Democratic Party, which are now a part of the congressional record, calling this pathological liar a hero. Democrat after Democrat lining up to sing similar praises, basically turning June 21st into one long campaign ad for Adam Schiff for Senate. An unpaid ad that Schiff himself is grateful for. This is Adam Schiff on the House floor on June 21st.
To my Republican colleagues who introduced this resolution, I thank you. You honor me with your enmity. You flatter me with this falsehood. You who are the authors of a big lie about the last election must condemn the truth tellers, and I stand proudly before you. Your words tell me that I have been effective in the defense of our democracy, and I am grateful.
Adam Schiff is branding himself as one of the truth tellers. He's branding himself as a defender of democracy, even though his piss-poor job performance is one of the key reasons why the greatest threat to our democracy, Donald Trump, is still eligible to run. And my question is, are we buying this Well, if we follow the money, yes. because Adam Schiff is successfully fundraising off of the censure for his Senate campaign. Adam Schiff raised $3.76 million for his Senate campaign in June, which is more than triple what he collected in May before the censure. And I don't know if I should do this, but I'm going to, because I'd like to stay out of politics. But I was raised in California. My family moved there when I was just 6 years old. My mom has lived in the same town in California where we first moved into in 1988. And my dad lives near the beach in Los Angeles. My sister lives near the Kardashians. And my step-siblings live, well, all over the place, but all in the state of California. California is my home. California is the state where my most beloveds live. And so this is personal for me. And so while I have generally avoided politics, I just can't this time because I don't want my home represented in the Senate by Adam Schiff. And the Democrats, the people in the party in Congress might not be disturbed by his piss poor job performance or his habitual twisting of the truth or his refusal to admit when he's wrong, a description, by the way, that fits perfectly to describe their nemesis, Donald Trump. Those two have a lot in common. And so, while this doesn't bother the Democrats and they were against the censure, and, I don't even know if the censure was warranted for Adam Schiff. But my thing is, honestly, who cares? I care that this guy is way too Trumpy. So while the House is going to do what they're going to do, whether that is to censure or to portray a liar as a hero, when it comes to the Senate, when it comes to Adam Schiff in the Senate, that choice is in our hands. And California, I've got to tell you, we have better options. The other options running for the Senate in the Democratic Party are Barbara Lee of the Oakland side of the Bay Area and Katie Porter of Irvine, California, the representative for my hometown. And I have lived in both of their districts, and I feel like they both represented me well. Barbara Lee, man, the Democratic Party leaders never forgave her for being the only person to vote against the one-paragraph bill that was presented in the days after 9/11 that has authorized global, endless war. Barbara Lee was the only person with a cool enough head to see what kind of death and destruction that authorization for military force would bring. And she got death threats for that vote. Now, that is heroic. And I would love to see that kind of courage on behalf of peace, represent us in the Senate. And Katie Porter, she's a newer member of Congress. But from what I've seen, especially in hearings, she is a fearless defender of working people and definitely an adversary to unchecked corporate power. And so I'd be happy to promote her too. And Adam Schiff is not in their league. The Democratic Party leaders love him because he's corporate and a Hollywood fundraising machine. But I, for one, find the way that he lies about things easily proven, about documents that are right in front of his face, like what's in a transcript or in a censure that's printed on the docket 4 feet from his face. And I find it unacceptable how okie dokie the Democrats, at least in Congress, find it. We can do better than him. And speaking of unacceptable, let's also take a moment to examine the Republicans. Did Adam Schiff deserve the censure? I leave that judgment up to you, because it is debatable, and I don't really care. Because at the end of the day, there are no real consequences for a censure, so who cares? Nancy Pelosi on June 21st was right.
The only advantage to all of this is that instead of reversing what we did on the IRA to save the planet or reversing what we did to reduce the cost of prescription drugs, you're wasting time.
A censure is a consequenceless message of a bill. It's a waste of time, whether deserved or not. And the Republicans, they are likely to waste a whole lot more time. Because right now they are considering impeaching multiple people, including Matthew Graves, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Merrick Garland, and FBI Director Chris Wray, and the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And of course, they're thinking about impeaching President Joe Biden. For what? I don't know. They're looking for those reasons now. But in the meantime, the Republicans have finished 0 out of the 12 government funding bills, which are due on September 30th. By the way, they're taking all of August off of work. They also haven't finished the Farm Bill, which extends and usually adjusts food programs in the United States. That expires this year. And the defense authorization is being filled with culture war dingleberries, and that bill is in danger of not being finished by the end of the year for the first time in over 6 decades. You know, some people listen to both of my shows. They listen to this and my co-hosted We're Not Wrong. I co-hosted with Justin Robert Young and Andrew Heaton. I love that show. But at the end of one of my recent episodes, I lost my mind and I cried when talking about Congressional Dish. And this is why. Because Congress is so powerful and we're all required to invest in it. We all pool our money via taxes in order to have the government provide services for all of us that we can't create as individuals. And as I travel the world, I have noticed that other countries have state-of-the-art public transportation systems. There are entire countries with public transportation systems that can take you to every inch of their country, no need for a car. Oh, and by the way, their bridges don't fall down. There are countries where if you get sick and can't work, you don't lose your health insurance because health insurance isn't a thing. You get sick in other countries, you can focus on getting better without worrying about bills because healthcare is provided with taxes. There are countries where insane people and drug addicts can get treatment without bankrupting their families or having to live on the streets. And there are countries where any job that you work for a full day will pay you enough so that you can afford a safe, clean home. What that tells me is that there are solutions to our problems because other governments have figured them out. And that other countries have models that our Congress can look to for inspiration when writing laws to solve our problems. But this Congress isn't even trying. And I mourn the wasted potential of our Congress. And sometimes I just can't take it, watching them piss away our money and our time. And so I don't see any good guys in this entire saga. And I think I say this too often, but this is what I truly believe. We need to get serious about our Congress. And we need to elect people and put people in charge of it who are competent and honest and who are focused on solving problems, not people who are focused on punishment for political opponents. And the Republicans leading this House, they aren't it. And neither is Adam Schiff. So this week, I have a very special executive producer to announce. This is someone who has been helping this show forever, but is claiming his first executive producer credit. So thank you, Ben Barnett, for producing episode CD279, Contriving January 6th, which was the episode about the January 6th committee hearings. And for that episode, I basically made a clip show out of 20 hours of testimony, and I was able to summarize that down to 2 hours. And so this is what Ben said about that episode. He said, "This is the first executive producer credit I've claimed. During the introduction of this episode, you said that you think it might be the most important episode you've produced. I agree that it's definitely near the top of the list. I thought now was a great time to claim an EP credit as Donald Trump has been indicted for some of the crimes discussed in this episode and the January 6th hearings. Thanks so much for everything you do, Ben Barnett." And Ben, with your executive producer credit, that episode, Contriving January 6th, is now the undisputed #1 most valuable episode of Congressional Dish. So thank you so much. Your timing is impeccable. And as far as the indictment is concerned, I was going to go into some detail here, but I actually have something better for you. So I had the absolute pleasure of being invited on the podcast Useful Idiots. It's hosted by Katie Halper and Aaron Mate. And on that show, I debated Michael Tracy on the, not validity, but importance of the January 6th related indictment of Donald Trump. And so if you're someone who thinks that this indictment is a total overreach, then you will be on Team Michael. If you're on someone who thinks that this is pretty serious and worthy of criminal prosecution, you're going to be on Team me. But I think in that hour-long debate, we pretty much cover everything there. And it was a very friendly debate. It was so nice to meet all three of them. It was the first time I had met Katie, Aaron, or Michael. But it was one of those conversations that actually stuck to the topic. It didn't devolve into partisan nonsense at all. And I really enjoyed it. And so if you want to hear more on my thoughts on the indictment, I strongly recommend checking out that episode of Useful Idiots. And I don't know exactly when it's going to be released, but I would imagine it's going to be soon. So if it's not in your podcast app yet, it will be soon. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, that is happening. We're going to get a trial, I'm pretty sure, because Donald Trump has never admitted fault for anything. So I don't imagine he's going to plead, guilty to get out of a trial. So yeah, at the end of the day, what we think about it doesn't really matter because it's going to be a jury that decides. So, but what's really nice is that episode, Contriving January 6th, it presents the evidence that the January 6th committee collected in a digestible form. Because let me tell you, watching 20 hours of it, not fun. In fact, there were whole hearings where they just focused on how scary the riot was that didn't even make it into that episode. I just really wanted you to understand the conspiracy, basically, because he's been indicted for defrauding the United States government in a conspiracy. There were 2 charges related to obstructing an official proceeding, which is a charge that a lot of the rioters are being prosecuted for. I think 70 of them have been successfully prosecuted for that same exact charge. And then the 3rd charge is related to denying people the right to vote and have their vote be counted. And so if you want to hear the evidence of that before the trial happens, Contriving January 6th, I can't think of a better place for you to do that. So enjoy that episode. Thank you to all producers that have made that our most popular episode of Congressional Dish. And if you have feelings about which episode should be on the top of the most valuable episodes list, all you have to do is contribute a cumulative $535 to Congressional Dish. Every time you do that, you're eligible for an executive producer credit. And every time you put your credit on an episode, it moves it up the list. So yeah, thank you very much. This podcast has taken a financial hit. So if you haven't donated lately, now would be a good time to do it. I don't really understand what happened. It's like no one gave a shit about the UFO episode. I don't know. We did get a few donations, but far fewer than usual. I thought that episode would be more popular. The other concern that I have is maybe because I told you guys I enjoyed making it, people feel like I don't deserve to get paid for that work. I don't know. Like, do I have to be miserable in order to get paid? Yeah, not getting paid for that episode is making me more miserable. So I guess we're headed in the right direction. I don't know. But yes, please contribute to this show because past few weeks have been pretty piss poor. Got to be honest with you. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. The next episode is going to be related to the money in your pocket, or I should say the money that gets taken out of your pocket in the form of junk fees. There have been some interesting hearings on that, and so I'm going to play the best clips from those investigations for you and let you know what, if anything, the Biden administration is doing about all these damn fees. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
We're surrounded now by liars coming at us through our TV screens.
We don't have a domestic spying program.
They're content to fight in black and white despite the many in-betweens. We got a president who plays with the facts. And then he waves a flag to cover his tracks. As if a lie is alright, if the end will justify the means. Now we are so damn tired of being lied to.
The polar ice caps aren't going away.
We don't think we can deny it anymore. You can stick to your story if you think it lies. But we're not keeping quiet anymore. We are so damn tired of being lied to.
Government jobs consume the profits of the private sector.
We don't think we can deny it anymore. You can stick to your story if you think it flies.
These bills represent common sense, bipartisan solutions that actually solve problems.